Welcome to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success online event. Join your host, Elizabeth Hamilton-Guarino, and the contributors from the Success Guidebook and other special guests to visualize, actualize, and amplify you and your best success. This conference will help you redefine success, transform your goals, embrace change, design and realize your best life, and much more.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Breakthrough to Your Best Success Summit here, launching the Success Guidebook. And Gary, you might be the keynote actually. I haven't decided.
Whatever you want me to do.
Yeah. So it might be welcome too, but whatever the case, welcome. Thanks for being here. And I don't edit these things, Gary, so that's going in there just fine. Hi, everybody.
I like it. I like the freestyle.
Yeah,
freestyle. Let's go.
This is so much fun. Yeah, and I think that's a key to success, actually, is just being authentic. And I wanted to just start right there with you. And I want to back up one tiny second, though, and let everybody know. So I met Gary through Brian Esposito, a buddy of mine. They were typing stuff in on LinkedIn. I'm like, I need in on this conversation. I need to know him. And so approachable, so kind, so relatable. And look, here's his new book, Become a Super Leader. So this is Gary Laney and his new book, and this is a great book. So I know we're here to kind of talk about my book, but I'm going over here for a minute because you have such a wealth of information. So start with being authentic and reachable and things like that, and segue us over here.
You want me to talk about authentic?
Yeah.
Well, Marcus Ogden, maybe you know that name.
I do.
So Marcus has this podcast called Getting Authentic with Marcus, I think it's called. And, he asked, that's the first question he asked me too. So I basically am all about being, your true self. What are you all about? And just like you said, making sure that you're authentic with people in a way that they can relate to you in the true person that you are. There's no reason to be fictitious or to make up stuff or to, fabricate, a persona, which some people try to do on social media, because at some point they're going to figure it out. There's no depth. It's very shallow. The song Shallow. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything but yourself. Everybody's interesting. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a great thing to talk about. So I think it's, to me, authentic. And I've been this way since I was a kid, I think. My mom always thought that my charisma as a kid was enough, to win people over. And she used to really, make me feel good about that. And so I've always been that way, just be yourself, have fun, get to know people. Relationships are huge to me. Cannot have a good relationship unless you're authentic. It can't be meaningful unless a person can relate to you as a person, not just your background, not your experience, but I mean you as a person, your wonderful personality. Everybody has one. Yeah. It just has to come out. So I don't know. That's kind of how I kind of explain it.
So let's play devil's advocate here for a second and say, what if you're somebody listening and you're not sure you like yourself authentically, and you're like, I'm not sure if anybody's going to like me either, kind of thing. What if you're sitting there going, I want to be out there in social media, but perhaps I feel like I have to do this or that or another thing, especially I've been saying this throughout this whole conference, I'm 55. There's no filter on me. There's a couple lights here and things like that, but I'm not going to pretend I'm 20, 30, 40, or 50 even. And I'm certainly not going to pretend that when you meet me, I'm not 5'3" in person and maybe 5'4" if I fluff my hair up, so we are who we are. But what if you don't love yourself like that and stuff, but you still want to be out there in social media? There's a lot of that.
A lot of people, I think, glom onto social media because they want to feel better about themselves. Self-image is important. And when people like your stuff, it's all about likes. It's all about, and that word liking, that's what it really means. Do people like me? Are they, showing and demonstrating that they like me? And I think we go too far with that.
Yeah. So
I think one of the best ways I've learned in my life, and I talked about as a kid, that charismatic kid that I used to be, I really just loved being with people. I mean, my mom used to really be a little concerned about me because I'd take off and she'd find me at some elderly person's house when I was 6 years old, having a sugar cube or having whatever they could give me at the time. And, but I just loved being with people. I think that the best way to find out, who you really are is to go out and serve other people. When you give of yourself, people find out who you really are.
Yeah.
And do it because you want to do it, not because you want the accolades or you want, the reception or the rewards from it. So I've just been that way my whole life. I've just always been with people, helping people. I got into sales, even though my career really was going down a financial and policy and consulting path. And I finally realized that I just really enjoyed sales more than anything else. And I went back to get into sales after getting my MBA, became a VP of sales. And I spent my career helping customers, helping salespeople, helping professional service people, achieve their goals. And in the process, I find myself, because I'm seeing what the reaction is and what the impact is from my helping them.
Yeah.
So if you want to if you don't really think good about yourself, first of all, ask a few people that you trust. What do you think about me? They're not going to tell you terrible things. They're going to tell you the things they like about you.
Yeah.
Start with that. Secondly, go to a mindset where every day you're going to do something for someone else because you want to be authentic about your approach and what you're doing, and see what happens to you as a person. All of a sudden, you'll be feeling good about yourself because you're doing things for other people. So that kindness factor, I think, is really a key aspect to learning about yourself and how people can interpret that you really are a good person. So.
Love it. Tell us about your book a little bit. What's your book about, and why did you decide to write it?
Okay, well, I'm going to do a little cheaty thing here. So I put
Hi, Carla. I like the beginning of it. This book is dedicated to my best friend and love of my life, Carla. Hi, Carla.
Thank you. Carla's not here, but she would appreciate that. She is the love of my life. I mean, I've been married once. I have 6 kids, 10 grandkids.
Aww.
And so I'm not going to hide my age either. So I'm definitely not going to, try to pretend that I'm being something I'm not. My books started off with a book called The Power of Strategic Influence. That was influenced through my first relationship with a guy named Stephen R. Covey, who wrote the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I learned what influence and what relationships are all about through that man who taught you how to identify with people in a win-win way. The 7 habits.
Yep.
Begin with the end in mind, all those things. And I extrapolated, I expanded, I extended those concepts over the 35-year career so that it became now my concepts that I've proven that work with people to become an influential leader. So that's my first book. The reason I wrote the second book, Become a Super Leader, is because one of the chapters in my first book was about how do you identify and leverage your competitive competencies as a leader. Leaders have to show value or they don't stay leaders. And people won't follow you if you're not influential. You can't determine for yourself that you're influential. It can't be self-proclaimed. It has to be bestowed upon you by other people. It's a gift. And so this book is about how do I take the opportunity stage of my leadership. This book's about opportunity. It could be called, influential opportunity instead of influential leadership. Because leaders have opportunities depending on what skill sets they have, their competencies, call them assets if you want, to become much more than just a titled leader. They can become influential. They can actually impact the lives of other people. And so the book is about how do you identify competitive competencies that work for you in your life, in your career, in your role, in your industry, in your relationships. And then how do you find the one thing that can become your legacy of all those things you're working on. And I use a system that I've been using for 35 years that I learned from Benjamin Franklin, who almost 300 years ago developed a system that I've been working on developing and sharing with people that I manage. So that's why I wrote it, to help you identify something in the future that you can look back and say, this was my legacy. This is what people know about me. And it's an authentic interpretation of who I am.
One thing that I like about, that I kind of love about having you on here is that if people are listening, they can kind of pick up the breadcrumbs. I call them cookie crumbs because I love to make chocolate chip cookies. But, yeah. So, this is a moment to pick up the cookie crumbs and, gobble them all up and learn from you. And I mean, this book, talk about see it, be it, do it. This is it right here. And there's so much wisdom in here. And it's a book. Sometimes books aren't actionable. They're just kind of blah, 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 blah. This is actionable. I think both our books are actionable. There's a lot of takeaways and things like that. You want to talk about some of the people in your book?
Sure.
Because we have Nando in common.
Yeah, we do have some things in common. Brian Esposito from my first book, who you know so well. And I've known Brian for 20 years. He was one of my clients back in the day. So he became a client first and then a friend, and then we've been close ever since, kind of thing. So my books, it's interesting that we have some common approaches, Elizabeth. So my first book, I interviewed 12 people, which was a little bit overkill. But I had 12 chapters. I got into it, and I figured, every chapter is better because I have somebody exemplifying in a leadership role what I'm teaching. And it took one night where I spent the entire night and tried to match up who should be in what chapter.
Sounds
you know that feeling,
like herding cats.
It really is. But some of them are it just happened so naturally. In fact, some of them said, "Can I be in this chapter? Because I think that's who I am." Recently, I did an event called Influential Leadership Symposium, and Nando Cicerone, who's also somebody you interviewed, was in that event. And during the event, we had the opportunity to share, things about people, and we got into his career. And he's a very authentic person, somebody that has high emotional intelligence. But here's the deal. He learned through Brian Esposito, by the way, about my first book. And Brian thought it was such a great experience to be interviewed by me that Nando said, "I'd love to talk to you about it." He didn't commit up front, but he said, "I'd love to talk to you about it." We talked. He said, "Then I'd like a copy of your book." He read the book. Then he wanted to share it with his management team. I said, "That's outstanding." And then finally he says, "I'm on board. I want to be interviewed." And I said, "Can we come to your office? Can we come to UPS headquarters and do it?" And he said, "Sure, let's do that." So we did a recording like this for an hour with a film crew. It was a really great experience. I just got to know him. So just backing up, I interview leaders that exemplify the principles I teach. The first book, that was that matching process. The second book, I didn't want to do 12. I had 4 sections I call anchors. I'm into nautical stuff. I love ocean and all that stuff. So I have 4 anchors, and Nando represents my first anchor, which is about character. Think about a person with strong character. He's one of them that I've met. I think is outstanding. The next one is about mindset, and David Meltzer, who I got to know and got to fly out and go to one of his. David.
I do, yeah.
Well, I need to come to you for contact.
We're going to meet somewhere.
But David was amazing. He invited me to a kickoff for his TV show. Got to know him personally. I got to interview him. Yep. He's in the book, and he's all about abundance and about making the world a better place. I want to make a billion people better people, and so I really loved his concept. So that was the 2 guys, and then I always have equal representation in my books. I would probably have more women if I didn't do that than men. But I always have half and half. So the 2 women are Cindy Bigelow. Cindy is the CEO of a company called Bigelow Tea. If you've ever gone to a hotel, you've had Bigelow Tea. And then the 4th person is Jody Richards. She's the CEO of Process Technology. You may not know her.
I don't know her.
Or Cindy. Both outstanding women and leaders, super amazing people. So those are the 4. They all fit an anchor in my book. So Jody's into learning. That's one of my anchors is lifelong learning, innovation, learning how to reinvent yourself, reinvent your company, do all those things. And then David was about influence, and and then Cindy is about mindset. So I mixed those up and made it so that it really worked well for all 4 of them. And I think they're all happy with the categories.
It's an excellent book. So here it is again, everybody. And then we're going to move over into the Success Guidebook now, because I think your expertise lends itself so well to the topic of success. And there was something I saw where you have a success. I can't remember the name of it at this exact second, but you have a whole network of success, don't you? Success Masters or
Success
something?
Masters.
Thank-
Yeah, I own it. Thank you. And thanks for the plug of my book. I know this is about your book, so
That's okay.
it's so generous of you to take a moment to do that for me.
I have
That's
a cat too, by the way. That's Mel. She only comes out when she loves people. So
oh,
you'll see Mel, the podcast kitty.
right.
Who just walked in the background.
That's so
Anyway, sorry
cool.
to interrupt.
No, so success. I mean, listen, in 1980, I think it was, I started a business called Success Masters.
Yeah.
And then I became a speaker full time with a company called American Business Seminars. And that was my company, that I used for my speaking career. And then I stopped speaking and decided I wanted to be home with my family. I was speaking, Elizabeth, I was speaking up to 9 times a week.
Wow.
In 3 different locations. So 3 times in each city, 3 different hotels each city, and 45 weeks out of the year.
It's a lot.
And it was too much. I mean, I was home on, crazy thing is about it. I'd leave on a Wednesday, come home on a Sunday. And so I was just never around on the weekends, which is when I need to be home with my kids. So one day I said, that's it. I'm not going to my wrestling matches with my boys. I'm not doing this stuff. So I am going to stop speaking. I'll be speaking, but I'll be working for corporate stuff. I'm not going to do paid speaking. And so got into, managing, developing startups, and had a great career at that. 25 years.
Back you up for a second because I'm going to chime in there too, just from because this is a conversation back and forth with with us and stuff. But I kind of had a similar experience back in the 90s when I had my first job at Merrill Corporation. I was flying 100,000 miles a year or more, and which was fine when I didn't have children because I was in my early 20s and things like that. Age 25 hit and I had a baby, and then I had another baby, and then nothing slowed down. I had babies in tow with me, with nannies and hotels, and it was just like, oh my gosh, speaking in front of people and doing all these things, and I burned out pretty quickly. Actually, it was a recipe for a divorce, this or that, another thing. And so, my life went topsy-turvy. And then now I've been remarried for 25 years and we have 2 more children and things like that. But,
good job.
But I think people know the story. It's in books, but, it's an important moment to talk about, redefining success for ourselves personally and professionally, which is what we have both done, maybe more than once even. Do you want to talk about that? Because it's not always about money. It's not,
no, it's not
analytics.
And listen, even when I was in speaking, it wasn't about money. I did really well. We had 45 speakers for this company I worked for.
Yeah.
And, I was in top 5 and for 4 years. I did this for 4 years, that crazy 45-week schedule for 4 years. And then I stopped. Success, has to. So in my first book, I talk about something called PDF. So this will help you understand a little bit more about me. PDFs are personal driving forces. What drives you, to do what you do? And it can't be money. If money is your only sole driving force, you will not survive. And it won't be happy. I have friends that they went for the money. They went for the gusto right out of B school. And my friend that went to Goldman Sachs, he was divorced within a few years. He made tons of money, but he sacrificed his family in the process. And I just think you have to do things because you want to, because they are about you and they drive you towards something. I think in the end, you're going to do fine financially, but don't make that your focus.
Yeah.
And you asked about the success part. I owned a company called Trustegrity, which trust plus integrity means Trustegrity. And so I co-founded this business, became the CEO, and we expanded it nationally. And I sold it during COVID, which was a mistake. I probably shouldn't have sold it because it was doing so well.
Yeah.
But gratefully, the guy that bought it, the company that bought it, they've done so much better even than I did. So I'm grateful that they were able to take it to the next level. But success is about, that whole business was about helping other people be successful. My success is your success. If you're successful, I'm successful. And I finally figured that out, that I just have to focus on that, and everything else just works out the way it should.
Yeah. Well, people will say, what's your favorite part of besteveryou.com, Elizabeth? And I'll be like, the part where I get to feature people. Absolutely, hands down, featuring people. I could care less about me on there. I'm like, don't even put me on there. I don't care, but it's always about the thing that brings me the most joy out of that whole website is the little featuring you section where I get to interview people and promote them all day long and their books and all their stuff. Because it is a yawner when you just sit and talk about yourself all the time. It's like, oh, you know, just as boring.
But at the same time, you do talk about yourself. That's why your books have been successful, because you talk about your journey, your failures,
Yeah.
your struggles. And so I think those things, if there's a lesson, just don't make it all about you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. My first book, I didn't even talk, I mentioned my company like once, didn't even talk about myself. And everybody said, you need to talk more about yourself. And then this next book, I definitely spent a whole preface about myself, and then I go on to other people. But
Yeah. I had to learn that uncomfortable shift in the beginning, because when I very first started owning it, I just was like, you, all about everybody. Then I had a book come out and they're like, how are you going to promote yourself? I'm like, good question. I have no idea. And so I learned a little bit, but yeah, no, it's been interesting. Okay. I'm going to ask you some of these questions, and they're kind of written out a little bit, but
okay.
how has the notion of success guided you in making big decisions and life decisions, big business and life decisions?
Well, I'm gonna interpret that through the response I got from a guy named Gary Kennedy, who was a former president of Oracle. I was in high tech for 20 years. When I interviewed Gary, and it reflects on me, but I like his response. I said, tell me about success and leadership. What does that mean to you? And how do you make important decisions? You just asked me that question. He said, well, before I make a decision, I step back from everything. I get away from the noise. I get away from the people, the recruiter, the money, and all the stuff that they're offering me. He says, and I asked an important question. Can I make a difference? Before I become the CEO of this company, before I become a director, before I become a consultant, whatever they're asking me to do, can I make a difference? And even though that is not a question I specifically asked myself, it was the same thing I was trying to accomplish through my whole life. Is, am I comfortable here? Can I help the people I'm trying to work with? Really, am I going to make an impact? Would have been my question. And that's what I think it really comes down to success in the end is, are you comfortable with the decisions you made for the right reasons?
I like that. That's going to go up in my, I have a little quote thingy, not too many quotes. There's actually one. It says, remember your value. Put this one up there too, because that's
so kind of you. Yeah. That's important. I think it's something we can all learn from.
Yeah. Help other people all the time, for sure. And what do you mean? Let me ask. I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. What do you mean by can I make a difference? In what way? In any way, or does that mean we need a turnaround and the business is failing money wise, or does it mean people wise? What's it mean?
It means, do I have the skill sets, number one, to make an impact?
Okay.
Do they think I'm talented? Well, they wouldn't be talking to me if they didn't think I was. But am I the right person? Am I the right fit? Do I have the skill sets that will actually help them in their solution? And I think that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's talk about failure for a little bit. And again, these are 5 questions we've been asking everybody. I think we covered redefining success pretty well. So I'm going on to number 3 here. And this one's about goals, not achieving goals, meeting goals, and all the negative blah that happens when we miss our mark and so forth. Yeah. And it's just not quite what we had in our head or what we imagined and all that. I've been there a few times. Can you talk about that, and maybe a time or 2 or 3 or 1 or whatever where you had to persevere through that? Because the Success Guidebook is filled with those examples of this happened, but this happened as a result of this thing happening.
Yeah, and so first thing that came to mind is that in 2004, I decided to leave corporate. So I left speaking for what reason? I wanted to be home more.
Yeah.
But when I got into corporate and then I became a VP of sales, I was the beck and call of every salesperson that really needed me for a strategic big deal. And so I'd wake up and I was going to New York, in 2 days or wherever. Even I was living in Utah or California. So I decided that in 2004 that I really needed to be home, with my children and to be at those events and things. And so I stopped doing corporate stuff and said, I'm going to go into business for myself. I had entrepreneurial roots, and which means I grew up in a family where my dad was an entrepreneur, never worked for anyone. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, lots of, that blood in my system. So I knew I would do it someday, but this was the right time because I really needed to be home, to support my family. I had 6 kids. So, my
Are
wife
they all,
had
are they all like mine are all 2 years apart, or I've got
3
4.
years apart, except for the
Sorry,
last
same
2
thing.
with their twins, which
Oh,
were
yeah.
bonus program. I mean,
So there's no amount of nannies you can hire for that. Sorry.
no.
It's like, I need you home. Help.
Well,
Yeah.
my wife, was a trooper. I mean, she did
Yeah.
it, and we were building this big house at the time, and I said, I want to be home more. And she said, well, okay, I really appreciate that, but how are you going to pay for all this stuff we're doing?
My husband and you should have a conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
He has not, he's been working from home before working home was a thing. He's not,
me
he has
too.
been working for home for 20 years. I mean, forever. And he's never missed a thing. Maybe one, I can't tell. I can't remember. He'll tell you I missed one thing, but he has
That's really
never
cool.
missed a thing of
That's
music.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so Elizabeth, so I'm going to answer your question first of all before I get
Yeah.
off.
Sorry. We're going on and on.
No, I'm not let's do it. So the failure became I decided to leave corporate and get into the most comfortable position that made money in a startup entrepreneurial phase. And so I decided to join hands with a guy that owned a sales training company. I was very, very good at training salespeople. I trained thousands and recruited thousands. So I knew I could help him, but the problem was, as I got into it, and he hired me, and I left my corporate VP sales job. It's a really good job. And all of a sudden, I learned it's too late to make a decision to go back. That he wanted me to be him.
Cool.
He was a character. I mean, he had very good content. His delivery was good, all that stuff. But he wanted me to be a duplicate copy of him in the field, out with his customers. He wanted me to say exactly what he said. And I said, "Why would you hire me? I'm a kind of a cowboy sales guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out. I'm going to find a solution. I can fight the big, elephant deals, whatever you want me to do, but don't ask me to be you. Tell me to teach your content, but I'm going to spin my personality into it and my background and my experience." But he really harped on that. And so for the first year, we really struggled. And then we both determined that this is not going to work. It was a failed partnership. And I wrote a book. I wrote a chapter in my first book about the 6 building blocks of building a trusted partnership because of that experience. So it failed.
Blogs like that.
What's that?
I said I've written a few blogs like that.
Oh, you have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor Swift, about her relationships. I mean, that's why she has good songs, because she talks about her failures. Well, this one was a big one for me. And all of a sudden we were building this $3.5 million house at the same time. So my wife says again, okay, you're leaving that. How do we finish this house? How do we take care of our family? I couldn't take retirement funds at the time because it was too early. So I said, don't worry. I said, and don't tell the kids. I said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to evaluate. I'm a sales guy. I'm a guy that starts up businesses for other people. I've developed, national programs for other companies and even Fortune 500 companies. So I can do this. And so my first thing after telling her that was to go back and sit down and say, okay, why did I just say that? And what do I think I really have? And I had to prove to my wife that I really knew what I was doing. So I said, okay, what am I good at? I'm really good at startups. I'm really good at acquisition of clients. I'm really good, at bringing on, staff and all that stuff. I don't have a big budget, so I can't do that. I'm going to be wearing most of the hats. So I did this tour with brokers that were showing me businesses left and right that I could buy. But I didn't want to spend a lot of money because I didn't want to make a big failure if I didn't succeed.
Sure. Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to evaluate. I evaluated over 200 businesses. I flew around the country. I narrowed it down to 10. I bought 7, and most of them were related to each other. Cool. And they're small. And I spent like $250,000 for all 7. And I just figured I'm going to follow the money. These are related to each other. I'm going to get some of my family was interested in getting involved. I figured I could take care of 2 or 3 of them on my own. They were very small. And over the next 7 years, I developed a multi-million-dollar company, not billion, $1 million company, and paid off our house, had no debt, put a big thing, socked away money for retirement. I'd never made so much money. It was so cool. But sometimes you can't get there unless you're facing the refinery, the furnace and disaster. That's when if you don't give in, to discouragement and other things, you have to keep your head up, work like a crazy person, but which I did. So I was working until 2 a.m, getting up at 6. I mean, I did that for 2 years. And finally it's paying off. Things are going well. Business is growing. And then I sold it all, in 2012 and with a great sense of, accomplishment. But it was a failure that caused all that.
Yeah. A lot of the times it is that pivotal moment where you've got something on the line. What about a moment where you said yes to something or someone and it changed your life? So I've got this thing, I call it an incredible yes, just like a moment where you said yes and that was the right thing to do.
Well, the first one is just what I said. I mean, I said yes to buying these businesses.
Yep.
And most people say, why you buy 7? Well, first of all, it didn't cost a lot. And I turned one that cost me tens of thousands into millions.
Yep. And
that decision to put confidence and faith in myself, say, I've got the skills, I've been developing them for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
If I can't do this for myself, why was I doing it for other people? I can do it for myself. And I don't have to have a big staff. I don't have to have a big business, and manufacturing facility. I don't have to do all that stuff. I can do it on a low scale and build it as needed. But I was growing, 100, 200% a year. And it was really kind of exciting to do that.
Yeah, we did something similar where my husband quit a job and we started Compliance 4. And same thing, just pivoted and did that. So we own Compliance 4 and we do compliance all over the country.
You did it together
Yep.
as a partnership? Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. How's Carla's tolerance for risk and stress?
If you ask her, she's very tolerant. I'm not sure she really had the experience to say that she felt comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Because we've lived in 28 places in our marriage.
Wow.
Have 6 kids in 28 locations. And we've owned 20 houses. The others were rentals. But
that's interesting.
When we met, she knew I was working for a summer sales company. We're both in school still.
Yeah.
And by the way, she gave up her school and now she's back in school after all these years. And so I'm supporting anything she needs, believe me.
Yeah.
But so here was the deal. The company I worked for, you would find out the night. So you develop a team, I recruit a team. We're going to go out and sell products door to door, basically, or through referrals. But it was a very direct sales thing I was doing to get through school. We would go to a sales training camp the night before we left. As a week-long experience. They would have you stand up with your team and they'd say, Gary and team, you're going to Seattle, Washington. You're going to Anchorage, Alaska. You didn't know them until the night before.
Wow.
And my wife says, where are we going to live? I said, we'll find out the night before where we're going and I'll find us a place. Don't worry about it. And I was young back then. I was not as sensitized as I should have been.
Yeah. That sounds kind of fun though. Like without kids, that would be fun. With kids, that would be a nightmare because they've got to be in school and things like that.
Well, we found out she was expecting once we get into this experience. But how did she have enough confidence to just say, yes, go? We end up in an area. I found some past clients. I went to them and said, my wife and I are looking for a place to live. Never during that experience of those 3 or 4 years where she did that with me, did we not have a place to stay the very first night without even knowing where we're going to be.
Yeah.
We went to a past client. Oh, I know somebody that can help you stay in this place. I mean,
cool.
So that was pretty cool. I don't know.
I'm going to have Carla on. We'll do it.
You
Show.
need
It's kind of fun. Yeah. We were a startup bust victims out in San Francisco years ago in 2003. And we moved sight unseen to Maine. I did. There was this thing back then just budding called realtor.com. And the house, Portland, Maine, and the house popped up. I'm like, I could live there, kind of thing. It was a cool house. And we moved, I moved sight unseen from California into a rental in Freeport for 3 weeks and then into the house because the house didn't close on time and just all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I can relate.
You can relate.
Oh, girl.
Well, she's a trooper. And
I
have to say something. She used to attend some of my sales calls. There was never a time when she came with me we didn't sell. We closed 100% every single time. She was amazing. So
When you told me the other day, I don't know what we were talking about, but you were like, yeah, she's going back to school. Do you know what I did? I went and put in my applications for my master's degree.
wow.
In psychology. I'm
Congrats.
like, if she can do that, I can do that. Because I'm 55. I'm like, all right, I'll try.
Well, she's
And
60 in her 60s and doing it, so you can do
yeah,
it.
and so I've been accepted into the Harvard program for master's degree in psychology, and then
Wow.
ASU had another online one too. I'm like, ASU or Harvard, I don't know, but the thing that you have to climb over to get your degree actually is statistics. I'm like, oh, gross.
Oh, yeah.
It's a nasty class. All the boys, I'm like, hey boys, what's statistics like? They're like, oh, mom, but I'm pretty good at. I'm good at math, so I'm not too worried. But
Yeah.
one of my sons said that was the worst class I've ever had. I'm like, oh no, it looks like a lot of symbols and stuff. But
So have you started your program? Are you?
What'd you say?
doing it already?
I didn't do it yet. I'm still kind of hemming and hawing because it's a little expensive and time consuming.
Yeah.
So I'm not totally sure. Not totally sold, but I'm working on it.
I went to Northwestern after working in corporate for a while, and then that was a really good experience for me. So I think you'll enjoy it. I wasn't 50s. I was almost 30 when I did it.
Yeah. My sons all have their master's degree and everything. I'm the lone child in here without the master's degree, so I'm like working on it. All right, I think we're pretty good on this concept of success and books and things like that. It's been really fun chatting with you and getting to know you better and having you with us. Is there anything I missed? I didn't talk totally with you about comprehensive success, but I think we touched on it with you being like, okay, I've got to not do that and be home and things like that. I talk a lot about that on Best Ever You, like don't sacrifice this for this, kind of thing. And I think we covered that pretty well. Is there anything you want to add on that topic? Or
no, it's because I go back to that PDF concept, that I teach, and that's really what that's all about.
Yeah.
Like how do you identify 7 roles in your life? Mother, friend, sister, CEO, speaker. I mean, all those things that you do, the main things, and what really motivates you to do all that? What's the crazy reason you're doing all this stuff?
Yeah.
The reason you need to do that is because in the end, if things get tough, you'll have the reason why you're doing it. It'll push you and it'll compel you to keep going so that you can survive it. The first concept of my first book was survival mindset. And if you don't have that perspective, you'll get blown off, the stage. You'll be blown off anything you're trying to do very quickly. You have to understand why you're doing this stuff so that life doesn't overcome you.
Beautiful. Beautifully put. All right. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And
honor.
Yeah. Oh no, my gosh. I'm so honored to have you here.
No, I mean it.
So anyway, all right. Thanks everybody for being here and take care. And we'll be back with the next speaker.